Hi, this is Shahzad Alana, and today's topic is economic systems. In this topic, we are going to discuss about how the allocation of the resources in the market and mixed economic system takes place, and then we are going to evaluate the merits and demerits of the market system. First of all, let's talk about what is economic system. An economic system describes the way in which an economy is organized and run, including alternative views of how resources are best allocated. Now, a key question in economics is to the extent to which a government should intervene in the market or in the economy, or leave the economic agents that are households and firms to operate freely. So, from this, we can conclude that there are three main categories of economic systems. One is capitalism, also known as free market economy. We also know it as laissez faire and free enterprise. The second is socialism. At times, we use the name for it is centrally planned economy or command economy. And the last is the mixed economy, that is the mixture of capitalism and socialism. So, if we talk about the market economy, first, the economic system relies on the market forces of demand and supply in order to allocate the resources, with obviously minimum of the government intervention. In other words, you can say that an economic system in which investment in and the ownership of the means of production, that distribution and exchange of wealth is made and maintained chiefly by private individuals or corporations. So the private sector decides on the fundamental questions of what, how, and for whom the production should take place. If we talk about the main features of the market economic system, the first thing is there is no government interference in the economic activities. That is, resources are owned by private economic agents and they are free to allocate them without interference from the government. The second feature could be the resources are allocated on the basis of price. The higher the price, it encourages more supply, whereas a low price encourages consumer spending. So the resources are sold to those who have the willingness and the ability to pay. Another thing could be the financial incentives to allocate the scarce resources. We can consider the example of agricultural land is used for harvesting the crops with the greatest financial return, whilst unprofitable products are no longer produced. Then the competition creates choices and opportunities for the firm and the private individuals. So consumer can thus benefit from a variety of innovative products at a competitive prices or high quality. So similarly, we can also say there are advantages of being operated in a free market economy. One is the efficiency. The competition helps to ensure that the private individuals and the firms pay attention to what consumers want. This helps to stimulate innovation, thereby making market economies more responsive and say dynamic. Then the another advantage could be the freedom of choices. Individual can choose which goods and services to purchase and which carrier to pursue without being restricted by the government regulation. And the third advantage could be the incentives, the profit motives, the profit motive for the firm and possibility for the individual to earn unlimited wealth creates incentive to work hard. So this helped to boost economic growth and living standards in the country. But obviously there are some disadvantages of this system. One is the environmental issue. There are some negative consequences of economic prosperity under the market system. like we can say resource depletion, pollution, and climate change. Another disadvantage could be income and wealth inequality. In market system, the rich have obviously far more choice and economic freedom as compared to poor. So the production is geared to meet the needs and the wants for those who are ready to pay plenty of money. Thus, the basic services for the poor member of the society probably be neglected. The third disadvantage could be social hardship. In the absence of the government control, means the provision of the public goods such as we can say street light, public roads, national defense may not be provided. That means the relief of the poverty in society might only be done through voluntarily, voluntary charities, what we can say. The last is wasteful competition. Obviously, competitive pressure means that firms use unnecessary resource to gain competitive advantage over their rivals, such as you can say excess packaging and advertising cluster. The lack of government involvement could also mean that the products are less safer for the consumer. Now, the second economic system is the planned economy, or we can say socialism. This economic system relies on the government who are responsible for allocating the resources. It is often associated with the communist political system that strives for the social equality. Example could include North Korea and Cuba. In the past, China and the former USSR were often used as the best example for planned economies. With over 95% of the economic activities were state controlled at that time. Main features of the planned economy could be the production decisions are decided by the government, hence the resources are controlled by the government on the behalf of its citizens. We can say production schedules are devised on a long term basis, like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Then wage differentials are minimal. That is, labor is mostly paid equally, and then there is a minimal engagement in the international trade. The government prefers the economy to be self sufficient. If we talk about the advantages of economic system, planned economy, that particular system, then usually government takes responsibility for the allocation of resources first, then the determination of production targets for all the sectors who are operating in that economy, distribution of income and the determination of the wage rates, ownership of most of the productive resources and poverty, and last but not the least, planning long term growth of the economy. But if we talk about the disadvantage of that planned economy, it could be allocative inefficiency. Then we can say it may incur higher cost as compared to the previous one, that is the market economy, and then less choices will be available for their consumers, the people living there. It's a sort of jail effect, you can say, and firms not as successful as profit motive firms usually, because they are not targeting the individuals like as in case of planned in case of market economy. In planned economy, what they do is they try to work hard, but for the people as a whole, so they don't care about the individual demands and all that. The next system is mixed economy, an economy in which private, corporate enterprise, and public sector enterprise exist side by side, and the decision taken through the market mechanism and are supplemented by some form of partial planning. We can say is to um, that's the reason why we describe it as a mixed economy, right? So the main features could be resources are owned by both one, the individuals and the public sector. That means the private individuals are also exist there, and the government is also intervening through the public sector. So there is a coexistence of public sector and private sector both. Then we can say market forces prevail but are closely monitored by the government. And the monopolies may at times exist but under the close supervision of the government. Advantage could be incentive to be efficient. There's a similar advantage as we can have seen in the market economy. Most businesses and industry can be managed by the private firms. Private firms tend to be more efficient than government controlled because they have a profit incentive to cut their cost and to be innovative. Now, limited government interference, that means mixed economy can reduce the amount of government regulation and intervention. And then we can say it reduces the market failure as well. Mixed economies can enable some of the government regulations in areas where there is market failure. Then we can say the degree of equality also exists in mixed economy. Mixed economy creates greater equality and provides a safety net to prevent people living in absolute poverty. At the same time, a mixed economy can enable people to enjoy the financial rewards of hard work and entrepreneurship. Then, macroeconomic stability. Government can pursue policies to provide macroeconomic stability, like expansionary fiscal policy in the times of recession. Now, there are some disadvantages of that as well. One is the private sector has to work under certain restriction and control. It is likely to carry out its programs under the national plan. But it is experienced in the economy that the process of private sector ultimately depends on the profit motive system and it is generally against the objective of the national planning. Then the transportation of private sector into the public sector as state policy of nationalization of private enterprise tends to create a lot of fear and confusion against the private entrepreneur, as it previously happened in Pakistan as well. Then the public sector is encouraged throughout the planning period, but its performance is not satisfactory and it is almost misfit in the framework of national planning. Now, with the result that no one then fulfills the objectives of the national planning, and hence it is one of the major factor causing the failure of the long-term planning. Now, the fundamental question that arises and that has to be answered by these three sorts of economic system, all have different answer with this question. The first question is what production should take place. Now, the question is about deciding which goods and services should be provided in the economy. For example, is it better for economy to have more roads or airports, or to have more schools and hospitals? Because the resources are limited in supply, decision maker realize that there is an opportunity cost in answering the question. So in case of market economy, the private sector decides this, what to produce, what production should take place. In planned economy, the particularly government will decide. And in case of mixed economy, both private sector and the public sector, they decided with the mutual understanding or the consensus of mind. Then, how should production take place? This question is about the methods and the processes used to produce the desired goods and services. Like, for example, uh, the decision makers have to decide which combination of factors of production should be used in the production process. Either should be capital intensive or labor intensive. That depends on the obviously the resources available in the economy in the country. Then the last question, for whom should production take place? This question is about which economic agent receive goods and services. For example, should any goods and services be provided free to everyone in the economy, irrespective of their willingness and ability to pay for these? Or should goods and services only be available or only be produced for those who can pay? So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much.